Come on in, welcome to my home. Why don't more people have hobbies? Alright, let's talk about this because the hobby industry is kinda dying. I mean, it's not horribly dying, but when you think about it, how many people have hobbies, and why don't more people have hobbies? I have some thoughts. Most of these thoughts are my ideas. I do have some references. If you are part of my Patreon or membership, you will find those references in that description. But I'm going to tell you what my thoughts on this are, but first we have to go into what exactly is a hobby, because a lot of you are already hate typing, well, I have a hobby. Getting on social media is my hobby. To that I'm going to say, wait a minute. Let's figure out what a hobby is before we decide that you do or do not have one. By definition, a hobby basically is something that you do outside of your occupation for pleasure or enjoyment. Okay, so that's easy. That's easy enough. For those of you who are saying, well, social media is my hobby. Well, okay, it might be. When you get on social media, are you doom scrolling? Because if you're doom scrolling, social media is not your hobby. If you're on social media to find out information, to be informed on the latest whatever, that's not a hobby. Your intent of what you're doing is very important. That's how you can definitely tell what is or isn't a hobby. Because if you're doing something just to enjoy yourself, most likely it's a hobby. Now, there are some really interesting things where people take their hobby and turn them into a business. That happens quite often, actually. Is it still a hobby? Probably not. If you've turned your hobby into a business, it's no longer a hobby because you're not doing it for your enjoyment. But it can be fun. I mean, you can enjoy your job, but you need something to have outside of your stressful life that does give you pleasure. Why do I say that? Well, because there are studies. There are studies that let us know that having a hobby will reduce your stress. It can be a whole lot of fun to just sit back and relax, and maybe your hobby is playing video games. Can playing video games be a hobby? Are you doing it for enjoyment? Yes. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's woodworking, maybe it is, I don't know, gardening, feather dusting. Who knows? What do you enjoy? You have to figure out what your hobby is and whether or not you enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy it, not a hobby. In fact, don't do those sort of things to relax that you don't enjoy. So, okay, we figured out that what a hobby is or isn't. Because, I mean, it's, like I said, fairly simple. If you're doing something that you enjoy, it's just for pleasure, cool, hobby. So then why aren't people having more hobbies? Because you'd think in the days that we have now, more and more people would want to be able to relax. Well, part of that is social media. Social media has turned hobbies into this competitive thing. Maybe not competitive. Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. Maybe the problem is us. When you go on social media and you're looking up a new hobby, let's say you're going to scrapbook. Cool. So you go on social media and you look for all the how-to scrapbook videos and you see that all of them are amazing. These people are producing these wonderful scrapbooks that just look fantastic, and you do your first scrapbook and it looks bad. I mean, bad. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. Why is that okay? Well, simple. Because what you are seeing are people who've had years of work on this. And why we think that we should suddenly be able to do something that people who have been doing it for 30 years can do effortlessly is absolutely beyond anything that I understand. We, for some reason, think that after taking a class or two, or doing something for a month, that suddenly we can do sculpting with no problems and have it look like a piece of master work. And why do we think that? Because we don't dig around. We don't look back and see what that artist did or did not do beforehand. And also, that artist probably isn't showing you their first work. They aren't showing you where they started and how good or bad it was at the beginning. Because guess what? They might have been horrible. They might have been so bad, it's not even funny. Or they might be not telling you that, oh yeah, I started taking piano lessons when I was 2. Now that I'm 35, I am a pianist that can play beyond belief, and I love doing it, and okay, great. But I'm not going to, as a beginner, be able to hop onto something and be able to be at that level. It's just like baking. When you start a recipe, I can show you how to do something, but I've been doing this for a lot of years, and yeah, I mean, a lot of years. So you might not be at that skill level, and that's okay. Be at the skill level that you are at. And if you think that you can just instantly copy somebody's work that's at a skill level above you, that's sort of insulting to the person whose work you're trying to do. Simply because you're saying to them, well, sure, you may have had 30 or 40 years of training, but I watched a video. I'm a master now. No, you shouldn't. And then the other part about this is stop beating yourself up as you are learning. The only way you're going to get better at something is to practice it. That's the important part, and that's the part which I think a lot of people don't show because they're embarrassed. For some reason, we are embarrassed to show that we are learning. We shouldn't be. Learning is amazing. I think learning is one of the best things that people can do. And so as you're learning your hobby, or you're learning your trade, or you're learning your craft, or whatever, go ahead and show those pieces, because it's okay. The one thing that you are going to find about social media is mean. It's just mean. And the worst part about it is, as you're learning your trade and people are like, oh, you're terrible. You should just, stop. That's just awful. That can put you back to the point where you never want to do your hobby ever again. Don't let that happen. Don't let those voices be just mean and horrible to you. Listen for constructive criticism, because constructive criticism is very good. Those are the people who are saying, oh wow, you might try doing this to improve that. That's constructive. But when people are just saying, oh, that's horrible, you should never do that, that's just awful, never show that to anybody, that's not constructive. That's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. And that's one of our problems with our hobbies. People can't just let somebody have a hobby and enjoy that person enjoying themselves without saying, what's his face can do that so much better. Oh, so much better. My 4-year-old started sculpture last week, and now he's having a museum showing. Great, good for them. They might have natural talent that way. If you don't, that's okay. You can learn. You can take your time. There is no rush to get things done in a specific order. However, this also leads to my next part. Why do we think that people don't have hobbies? The other reason is some hobbies are expensive, and I mean expensive. Let's say you're going to be sculpting marble. Yeah, how much does a block of marble cost? Oh, that can be super expensive. Or you want to go into bullet journaling. Pens, papers, bullet journals, those sort of things, those also can be super expensive. And for some reason, we think that when we start a hobby, we should have all of the best equipment because it'll make our stuff better. Well, no, it won't. The best equipment won't make your stuff better. It will make doing your stuff sometimes easier, but it won't necessarily make your stuff better. What will make your stuff better is actual practice. And the cool thing to do is to start off with what you have. Does that mean it's going to be hard? Oh, probably. If you want to start off with woodworking and you only have a screwdriver and a handsaw, yeah, it's going to be rough. But can you do it? Yeah. And if you enjoy doing this, then you can take your time to invest in the equipment. Because like I said, the better the equipment, the easier your life becomes. Would I love to do some woodworking? Yes, I would. If I had the space for it, I could do woodworking. Do I have the space for it? Not really. Do I have the equipment for it? I have some. I do. I have actually a cheap table saw. I have a circular saw. Don't have a jigsaw. I wonder whatever happened to my jigsaw. The materials for this can be quite expensive, and having the room to store the things that I'm not working on when I'm doing them can also be quite expensive. When I look at my hobbies, I used to do a lot of sewing. Don't do much sewing anymore because, one, I really wasn't getting into it. Really wasn't getting into it at all. Because when I did sewing, originally it was just usually for something like a play or making a Halloween costume or making curtains in my house. Cool, that's wonderful, that's great. Not really a hobby. Baking. Occasionally I do baking just for my own enjoyment, but most of the time I'm doing baking or cooking for a purpose, because my intent is to make something to be used for something rather than just make something for the enjoyment of making it. Lately I've been reading a lot. Am I reading for pleasure? Yes, I am. I'll just sit there and read for hours and hours on end. and it's just for me. There is nothing in there. Because at one time I thought, well, that'd be really cool to read books and then do some sort of reviews for them. And I've even mentioned this at other points. And then I was suddenly like, well, not really. One, I personally don't think that I have the background to review a book. And two, one of the things is it's just like I'm doing this for my pleasure. So if I want to read a trashy novel or what I would consider a trashy novel, I should be able to do that. I should be able to do that with no problem and not worry about what other people think because, well, it's for me. And the cool part about this is reading a book can be really cheap. I can go to my library, check out a book, read the book, and then go get another book. Or I can do this online. I belong to Kindle Unlimited, so that way I can read all sorts of books and enjoy them. I don't have to share them. They are not part of my job. They are literally just for my enjoyment. And that's the big thing. Like I said from the beginning, your hobby is something for your enjoyment. But there's also another hideous sort of thing. Your hobby can also get in the way of business. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of businesses are telling you, you must be productive at all times. Unless you're productive, you're being useless. We've covered this. Free time's important. Free time is your ability to just relax and enjoy yourself and do nothing or something. You need that free time. You do not need to be productive. Your hobby does not need to produce something. That's a whole big thing. Your hobby just needs to be something you enjoy. Stop feeling that your hobby has to produce anything whatsoever. It might not. It doesn't have to be, even if you're making something, what you're making doesn't even have to be useful. It just has to be something you think is nice and you enjoy it and you had fun making it. Businesses tell us that unless you're being productive, you're being useless. Then they also tell us that, hey, we can make it better for you. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Because they're telling us that our item that we put our blood, sweat, and tears in is useless. It's not worth anything because it doesn't look all that great, even though you're the most proud of it because you put so much effort into it. This is something that you made and you show it to somebody and they're like, I got that at the dollar store for $1. And you're like, but I made this myself. But you spent $18 to make it, and I only spent $1 for it. This isn't a competition. Nowhere in this is this a competition to see who can make it better, who can make it faster, who can make it cheaper. This is just you enjoying it yourself. Businesses don't want you to do that because guess what? It then means that they're not going to be able to sell their stuff. Now, there are businesses which will sell you craft stuff or things for your hobby. That's really cool, and you can get all of that, and you can get all of it that you want. It's still a business, so yeah, keep that in mind. Most of your mass marketing is done with businesses with finished products. Finished products that you can then get rid of quickly, because if you spent 18 hours making something, most likely you aren't just going to be like, meh, it's out of style now, I'm going to get rid of it. Instead, you're going to be like, I spent 18 hours making this, I'm going to hold on to it for a while. And should you get rid of those items that you absolutely made at the beginning and they're not all that great? You can. But it's really nice to be able to go back and see how your hobby, how your abilities have progressed. And the only way that you can do that is if you have those items around, or if you have really good documentation of those items. Now, one of the things that I found is when I started YouTube, I wasn't that great. My first YouTube videos looked bad, they sounded bad, but they're still there, and they'll always be there, simply because it's also a way for me to be able to look back and see how much better I have gotten. And that's one of the things about this is, as I do YouTube, which originally was a hobby, then I got better at it, and then it started turning into a business to what it is today. But your hobby may never turn into a business. Will you get better at your hobby? Yes, I promise you. The more you practice at it, the more that you do it, the better you will get. The only way that you're going to get better is to actually do it. And it's okay. We all started somewhere. We all started at that bad point where we weren't very good at it, but we kept going. And that's what people don't see. They don't see enough of people starting from bad and going to great. They also don't see enough of people doing the whole, hey, sure, I might have spent this amount of time or spent the extra money on this, but I made it myself and I am so proud of it. So the next time somebody shows you something that they made themselves, before you jump in and say that's terrible, look at it and say, hey, you did that, that's really impressive. It might just get them to the point where they're like, I'm gonna try something else. And before you jump into a hobby and buy everything expensive that you can possibly get, see if you're gonna like that hobby. You know what I did? I was gonna take up calligraphy. You know what I found out? I don't like calligraphy. But I went out and bought the calligraphy pens and paper and all that stuff. I don't like it. I don't like calligraphy at all. It's not my sort of thing. Do I play video games? I play one computer game. Can computer games be a hobby? Can video games be a hobby? Yes, but before I went out and bought a whole bunch of them, I went and found out if I liked to play them, if I didn't like to play them. So take it slow. Jump into a hobby very cautiously, very slowly. Get what you can and then see if you like it. If you do like it, then as your abilities progress, as you progress in the hobby, get the better things as you can afford it. Now here's what I'd like to do right now. I want to hear what your hobbies are. What things do you do? What things do you enjoy? How did you get into your hobby? I really want to hear about this because I find this very, very interesting. If you are interested in helping support this channel and getting more videos about this, or if you have ideas for videos that you'd like to see, go ahead, leave those in the comments. But if you want to help this channel and support this channel, you could consider joining my Patreon or my members, where we get a behind-the-scenes video. We also talk about what videos are coming up. Without these wonderful patrons, I would never be able to make these videos. I'd never be able to keep this channel going. You could do this too and help us, form what it is that we are doing. But it's so important to, as you're getting a hobby, don't feel that you have to be the absolute best. Just think that you have to be better than what you were the last time you tried it. I'd like you to tell me how you did, what you think of this, and I hope I get to see you again the next time you stop by.